Good to have you here. So I'll do a quick introduction and then we can get right into it. How are
Okay.
you? Is this really early for you?
It's a little bit earlier than usual, but it's fine.
Okay. So hi everyone, I'm Radhika from Champaca bookstore. We are based out of Bangalore. This is Priya Balasubramanian. She's the author of The Alchemy of Secrets, and that's the book that we are going to be talking about today. So Priya graduated from Christian Medical College, Bangalore, and is a gastroenterologist and transplant hepatologist in Sacramento, California. Is that right, Priya? Did I get
That's
that
right.
right?
Yes.
And her nonfiction has appeared on NPR, Scoundrel Time, and Roar, and her fiction has been featured on Litro in the UK. The Alchemy of Secrets is her debut novel, published by Champaca Press and imprint of Westland Books. So thank you, Westland Books, for also making this happen. Tell us a little bit, Priya, how you are doing and how the current situation is happening in the US, considering that you're a doctor there. I mean, since you're wearing many hats, you're an author and a doctor.
Thank you for having me, Radhika. And it's one of the I guess the fruits of the lockdown that I'm able to do this. In California, we've been lucky that we haven't been hit as bad as New
Okay,
York, for instance. But we've been doing a lot of social distancing and flattening the curve. I think it's been a real change in terms of the way we live our lives more than anything else, as I'm sure it is everywhere else in the world. And
absolutely.
it's a very uncertain time and it's disorienting because of that, but I'm grateful to have the time that I have with my family, and I think that's one of the biggest blessings of what's happened.
Absolutely. I can imagine. Um, would you like me to give a little summary of your book before we go into the questions for some of our readers who may not have read the book yet?
Absolutely.
Um,
Yes.
Priya's book, The Alchemy of Secrets, is available on Champaka's online store, and now we deliver all over India. So, everyone, after listening to this conversation, if you feel like buying it, please do. I'll just give a quick summary about the book, and then we can jump into the questions. So, as the blurb says, Mira's beloved grandmother is on her deathbed in Bangalore, a city she fled from 7 years ago. She has no choice but to return, but it also means having to face what she has tried to forget all these years. Memories of a lazy summer come flooding back when she and her friend Anisa wandered the tree-lined streets in Bangalore. All was not as idyllic as it seemed to them. However, a mosque had recently come down in another part of the country and its after effects rippled all around them. Mira untangles the threads of love, jealousy, political ambition, friendship, and family and finds that they go far back. Not just to when she was a young girl, but further to the mystery of her mother's death during the emergency and beyond. It's a vivid and unforgettable story as relevant today as the time in which it is set. The Alchemy of Secrets explores how the simplest of acts can have the most far reaching consequences. So I really enjoyed reading this book. Firstly, let me say that.
Thank you.
And I find that the book has a lot of secrets. It's very layered, and a lot of the characters are also very complex and coming alive in many, many different ways. And for example, Mira's Aji. She's a very complex character. And how do you see the contradictions in Aji's life? At one level, she has a deeply religious practice, making sure she's going to the temple every day and a whole bunch of other things. Even as you explore her past, you realize that she's a deeply religious person. And in other ways, she's also very progressive and in the way that she treats Anisa, for example. How is this held together? And do you know people like this? Because I find that the people we know in reality are always more complex. So I find, reading about her was very nice.
Thank you. So Aji was a delight to write, actually, and she is one of the gray characters in the book. And when I started writing her, I wasn't sure that I liked her all that much because of all the things that happened in her past, right? And and so she was. But I think over the years that it took to write the book, I got to know Aji really well, and I ended on the same note of fondness for her as Mira does. But I think, you know, I think the thing about Aji is that she's a product of her time, right? I mean, we're not all born woke with the benefit of Twitter and,
Absolutely.
you know, the idea of how we should think about things. And
Mm.
so she's struggled through her life. And when you see her with Anisa and with Mira at the later part of her life, she's made that journey from being this closed off, somewhat bigoted person, I should say completely bigoted person, which comes from her upbringing and her, you know, and the way she has of looking at the world, and she has to learn to see the world in a new way. And for me, that's a sign of hope, because it doesn't divide the world into the people who are good and who are bad, which is in reality not how we are. We're all kind of gray in some way or the
Yeah.
other, and we
Yeah.
strive every day to be better. So I think and I think that's the note that I really like with Aji, is her note of redemption that she finds at the end. I've been criticized a little bit by a few people by going
Yeah.
easy on her, quote unquote. But,
Mm.
you know, I feel that it's impossible to judge people who are in some ways historical by applying a lens that's more contemporary. I mean, they're going to do what they do and say, and you judge them, if anything, by their willingness to change.
Absolutely, yeah. I was just delighted that her character was like she's one of the main characters in the book, and I was
Mhm.
delighted that it was controversial, that it in this age where everybody is woke and everybody wants to be woke, it was nice to see a character that wasn't and who owned it, you know.
Right.
And and of course the journey, I mean, I can say this because the journey did kind of give her that redemption at
Right,
the end.
right,
But
right.
but it was nice to see that character for me, definitely. So, I mean, to take that particular point forward, Aji's character
Mhm.
also evolves from the lens of caste, class, and religion.
Right.
Another complexity that you bring very well into this book, the interplay between caste and religion. And in a lot of the relationships, sometimes it's implied, sometimes it's very much there, like between Aji and Anisa, of course, but also Girish and Vinay,
Hmm.
and Adil and Mira and Anisa, and there is this question of caste and class, that's and religion, of course, that's constantly playing out and really affects the characters and the story. So, what was your experience in bringing this nuance to the story?
So, you know, when I first started to write the story, and this is a little bit of a personal history thing, but I found myself going to these parties where, you know, you meet people who look like yourself. I was meeting other Indian Americans, and sometimes people would say things in conversation that I
Mhm.
found really jarring. And they were kind of deeply held beliefs, which were not the things that I shared about caste or religion or many of these things that we talk about. And, you know, when you're in such social situations, at least the way I handle it is I usually smile, move on, you know, find another conversation to be part of. But
Yeah.
after a while, I think that thing continued to build up. And I was going through this whole idea of, you know, I was in a new country, I was a new person, and I kind of didn't know where I stopped and where the world began. You know, I felt like I needed to draw my line in the sand. And that was something that was going on while I started to write the book. And I think that's one of the reasons it comes through in so many relationships in the book, because that's a concern that was, you know, always there. But I think it's also impossible to write about um, Bangalore or India or any culture that we know of so intimately without these nuances, right? If you take them out, then they're incomplete.
It would be very
And
flat without them. It's true. Mhm.
right. And so some of them are natural to the story because everybody is in a different station in life. They belong to a different caste, they belong to a different religion. And in an ideal world, you know, you want people to interact without any of those things coming into the picture. But in reality, they're
There's-
always there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So and that's how they kind of found their way into the story.
Yeah. I think we have to be very privileged to not see them at all.
True. True. And
So,
yeah, I don't know that anyone succeeds, but
yeah,
yes.
that's true. No, would you like to read us something related? Oh,
Oh, that yes, thank you for asking. And this is the book. It's inverted, but it has this lovely cover that I'm
it
sure
does.
your readers will
Uh-huh.
enjoy. Um, and the part that I'm going to read from is kind of in the middle of the book, And it's a small passage in that belongs in Mira and Anisa's childhood. It's set in Bangalore, and to me, it kind of has the place and the time and the ethos of Bangalore, and I will read that. So it begins. No one remarks on Anisa's presence at the temple. Anisa has always come to the temple with me because we have always gone everywhere together. The ones who know her have not minded before. They're often the housewives who have received us when we went Ganesha visiting together when we were 5 or 6. On Ganesha's birthday, all around, except inside Anisa's home, there would be the distinctive smells of ghee and jasmine, sandalwood and incense. Schools would close, loudspeakers would scream, and these ladies would set before the newly fashioned clay images of Ganesha in their homes the sweets they labored over since daybreak. We banded together, as children and urchins did, in mutually exclusive groups to go Ganesha visiting. The first year, I had begged and badgered Rehana auntie, hopping on one foot outside their door until she let Anisa come with us, against her misgivings and her better judgment. Vinay, who straddled that line between street child and better born, was the leader of our little group.
Oh, sorry, Priya. I think
Yeah.
someone is saying that they can't hear you because the connection isn't very good.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It says there's no sound,
Oh,
uh, but I can hear you clearly, so I'm not entirely sure.
okay.
Can people hear
Uh,
us now? Is this better?
Can you hear me?
Mm, I can hear you. Oh, the
Okay.
sound is fine. Okay. Someone else is saying the sound is fine. Please
Okay.
continue.
All right.
Thanks.
So
Uh,
it's a
Thank
short.
you.
No, no.
Mm.
So he would ring the doorbell first and say, Ganesha Nodbeku, we need to see Ganesha. His shoulder thrust out, almost a challenge to the lady at the door, daring her to point out that one of us was dressed not as well as the rest, and the other was a camouflaged non-believer. Not one did, of course. They opened their doors because children are like God, and who could refuse Ganesha on his birthday? Anisa was arguably the most enthusiastic Ganesha viewer, and asked often, dimpling prettily when offered a laddu, for godambirodu, one with cashews. Because another of our goals, less stated, was to sample 108 different offerings for pot-bellied Ganesha that the smiling ladies had made with their finest ghee and handed to us, even as they saw through our fervent piety.
Yeah, sounds like fun. So there was another bit of the book that I really enjoyed. Of course, I enjoyed the whole mystery and the build up to it, and then how it came through in the end. But I also really enjoyed your descriptions of Bangalore, and it's been something I've been doing recently, trying to find books that give me access to a city in a time period that I didn't have access to before. And I really enjoyed reading about Bangalore in your descriptions. Would you like to read us a little bit from there?
Oh, sure. Um, so Bangalore is kind of scattered throughout the book.
Mm,
And so what I'll do is actually read from the first chapter. Um, and there are two disconnected paragraphs, but they talk about the streets of Bangalore.
sure. Mhm.
And the book begins, it is a late evening in 1979 in a Bangalore that now exists only in faded newsprint and memory. The sky darkens overhead while the vegetable vendors on the street fire up their kerosene lamps in anticipation. The evening puja at the temple has ended, and supplicants straggle homeward, stopping for vegetables or gossip. A game of street cricket continues in defiance of impending demise, for streetlights will flare momentarily to announce dinner for the players. Tiny brown and white sparrows take flight, squawking at wayward balls that interrupt their pecking. Bird sounds, wheels bumping along on potholed road, shouted conversations across the street, and the thump of ball on bat, all melt into the evening breeze that arrives from some cooler clime, making it hum as it dusts off the street. My grandmother stops at the flower seller stall. It is halfway along the steps to Ganesha's temple on the hill. We are on our way back. after the evening puja, and Ajji has a basket to return. She adjusts her white sari over her head as we wait. I'm almost 4 years old, wearing a favorite striped green frock and clutching a photograph in one hand. I stand on tiptoe and strain to see over the wooden platform that Lakshmi, the flower seller, sits on with her son Vinay, who is just a little older than I am. I lean in, and the tobacco-laced beetle that Lakshmi chews and the jasmine strands that she sells all day long envelop me in smells pungent and delicate all at once. And then I'm going to read just a brief paragraph a bit further on. It goes, when they're done with the visit with Lakshmi, we walk home through the winding tree-lined streets. Ajji strides ahead, sari pulled close against the faint evening breeze. I hang on to her little finger. My whole hand is curved around it. In my other hand, carefully clutched, are my flowers and the photograph. My short frock tickles my legs in the breeze as I take 3 steps to one of hers. She hurries me along the way because I let go of her hand often to pick up leaves or stones or stop and peer at insects in the dirt. There is a gentleness in Ajji's gestures to me that is absent in her other actions or her straight back stride. A patience that I sense is not usual for her, and the smile she cannot hide when she scolds me for picking up stones off the street. All of it adds up to a love that proclaims itself so quietly it cannot be denied. We hurry past the boys now pulling up branches that are cricket stumps and debating winners and losers to the day's game. We walk by a busy ration shop that will be abandoned years to come because the shopkeeper is going to hang himself from its ceiling over a bad debt and be rumored to come back nightly after. We go by a movie theater that will one day be destroyed. By the new and empty block of apartments that will soon house Anissa, my constant childhood companion, and her family. The path takes us to the winding street that ends on Sampige Road, where in a flat-roofed, squat and spread out home, my childhood will be lived.
Lovely. Thank you so much. That was a very
Very well.
touching paragraph. Yeah. And now that you say that, I can go back and remember all the incidents that are going to happen in the book. That's really nice. I think I'd like to head towards finishing up by asking you what it is that you're reading right now, and if there's something you'd recommend for our readers. Mm.
Oh, so there are 2 books actually that are on my nightstand right now. This is one, I don't know if you can see it. It's The
Mhm.
New Order by Karen Bender. It's a collection of short stories. This is the hardback, but the paperback is now out, and it's absolutely lovely stories that I'm rereading at this point because I'm trying to write short stories of my own, and this is an excellent guide and companion for that. The other book is an absolute joy. It's
Oh, it looks beautiful.
Meadowlark by Melanie Abrams. This is also literary fiction, but it's kind of a suspenseful book that the last 50 pages are kind of, they go at breakneck speed and completely enjoy. And these are my 2 books that I'm reading now.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Very welcome. Um, are we done with our interview, Radhika? Or I did have one question for you.
Please, yes, go for it.
So, always, I came to Champaca when I was in Bangalore, and it's such a delightful place. And my only regret is that I didn't spend as much time there as I would have liked to. But I've seen the shelves that you have and the way they're labeled. And I just had a question about, your kind of vision for the store and, your philosophy behind the curation of books that you do. What can we expect when we walk in?
Yeah, I think from the beginning, we've wanted Champaka to be. We have a small curation, and we've always had little space and also smaller budget to begin with. So we decided we want to have a very highly curated selection when we walk in. But it was also, I mean, there are so many underrepresented themes and authors here. And we just wanted to make sure that people have access to them. And not just by I mean, not just access to them in the sense that they can buy them, because there are other places that they can buy them, but where they get more attention as well. Where if you walk in, you should be able to find the women authors as prominently displayed as the men authors, or find subjects like caste and feminism, and books about queer literature, and all of that easily accessible. It shouldn't be one book in 1,000 that you can't find. Yeah. So we want, that was the main idea behind our curation. And of course, geographical representation. And we try to keep a lot of things in mind while doing our curation. And we continue to try to do that as we go ahead. And on our online bookstore as well. We've just launched it, and I'm so excited that we've managed to launch it. Of course, there will be errors as we go, but we're trying to keep it as thoughtfully curated as we do the store. And I hope people enjoy that.
That's wonderful, and I wish you the very best luck. I'm sure.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah. So, yeah, I hope you can come for longer next time and spend more time with us. It was wonderful seeing you here.
Forward to it. And next time I hope to try the menu too, the extensive.
Yeah. It's quite small, but again.
I think we had a connection issue there.
Oh, okay. Are we back? Can you hear us?
For me, we are. I don't know about
Okay.
everyone else.
I think no one has said anything, so I think we're back. So yeah, Priya, thank you so much. And for all our listeners, thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Westland. And also thank you, everyone. Yeah, I hope that you buy Priya's book. It is something that I've really, really deeply enjoyed. I hope you enjoy it too.
Thank you. And thank you to everyone who logged in. And I can't see from my end who is on, but I will look you up and reach out to thank you. Thank you very much.
Bye. See you. Have a good evening, everyone.